So you're going to want to get ready. Buckle your seatbelt. Make sure you got that pen and paper ready to take some notes because you're going to want to be a part of this next talk. So what I'm going to do is going to bring up, if you would, Mr. Erik. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to say my goodbyes, and I'm going to leave it with you.
All right. Outstanding. Thank you so much, Travis, and to the AGC team. It is so good to be back for a second time. And I'm hoping to knock it out of the park today because you never know. Maybe a third time, who knows? But I am going to cover in 15 minutes one of the most important topics that has ever faced the business world. As leaders, we need to provide the cure for social distancing. Anytime I mention that title, this presentation, ears perk up, leaders lean in because they know there's been an impact. Social distancing has impacted every one of us in some capacity. Every business has experienced it. And that could be that people have stayed home. They've gone completely remote. Or it might mean that people are wearing masks in the workplace and staying 6 feet apart and having plexiglass dividers. The world has shifted for a lot longer than we ever thought. It was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And that was 14 months ago. And so the timeliness of this message based on how long we've been socially distanced is critical. And what I want to share with you in this brief period of time is your prescription for unification. Some things that you can do, some things that you can observe in your teams right now on their behaviors, their patterns, as we bring people back together, as the restrictions start to lift, and as we enter a very critical phase, which I'm going to cover as we wrap all this up today. But to really set the stage here, I want you to understand that most leaders are not prepared for chaos. They have not been trained and prepared and developed to handle the challenges that have been here for the last 14 months. And so many feel a disadvantage. We've been called since the beginning of the pandemic as a leadership coach to share ideas for leaders how to navigate this storm. You see, as Travis mentioned, I was in the Marine Corps. And if you've served, every moment of your tour of duty, you're trained and prepared and developed to go into chaos. The business sector is different, which I've been a member of for 30 years. The business sector prepares everyone to avoid chaos, and there's no avoiding this. And so we need to unify our people in a time of separation. So I want to set the stage for this. And I want you to think about what is the greatest asset in your business. Just let that sink in for a second. If you're like most leaders, you have one definitive answer, and it is the answer that every single team member wants to hear, and that's your people. Our people are our greatest asset, and our people need us now more than ever. This is when leaders are needed the most, and if people haven't been developed as leaders to understand how to navigate through chaos, we can fall short. Now, there's something powerful about people. We're at our strongest when we're gathered. We form teams. We create teamwork and cohesion. And yet 14 months ago, on March 11th, something happened that prohibited a lot of levels of teamwork to stay consistent. It made it more challenging. And this is what we need to get back. Can we have teams virtually? Yes. Can we have teamwork virtually? Yes. Is it at its greatest when we're separated? No, it's not. And we're coming back together. So the idea of unification is critical, but not just putting people in a room together, unifying them and create this synergy, this cohesion and camaraderie because we have been through a shared obstacle together. So we know that people are our greatest asset, and when they are together, they form a team. I mean, you can say it out loud right now. Teamwork. How awesome is that? Teamwork. We need that to be successful. And what was blocking that was social distancing. Remember that. Staying 6 feet apart, staying away from each other. We are social creatures mandated to socially distance, which was deeper than social distance, right? It was physical distance. Now, if we look back to when the pandemic first broke out on March 11th, the World Health Organization said we have a worldwide pandemic. And the CDC came right out and said, here are 3 guidelines to keep everybody safe. The first one, we're probably not going to argue this one. I don't think anybody listening to this right now is saying, well, I'm not washing my hands. I won't do that. But that was the first one. Wash your hands. And then there was a second one. Wear masks. which starts to add to that separation feeling. Some people couldn't even wear them based on their health conditions. Some people felt awkward, but we wore them. We wore them. But that wasn't the biggie. You remember the biggie. Distance. Stay apart. You know, it's interesting. We did it so fast. We distanced rapidly. Almost immediately, we all spread out. We were remote. We were distanced. We were separated. And most of us did it really well. I mean, let's be very clear. Most businesses that I coach went remote or socially distanced. Awesome. They did a great job with it. If you take a look at some stats from Gallup, here's how fast we did it. By March 13th, 2 days after the pandemic, 31% of the entire workforce in this country, in the United States, was remote. Just a few days later, 49%. And by the time April 20th rolled around, 62% of the world workforce was separated, remote, part-time or full-time, mostly full-time. There was even stay-at-home orders. So what's the impact of all of this? How do we bring our people back once they've gone and gone for so long? Now, working remotely isn't just the challenge technically, because we did it well. We're all set up. We can Zoom, we can go to webinar, we can do all kinds of great platforms. But what has the impact been emotionally and physically for people? So I want you to think of a very simple concept, and we've all heard it. It's Newton's third law of motion, and we all know it. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now, we're not going to argue with Newton. We believe in this. But what action happened and what reaction is happening? Well, the action that we took is social distancing, stay apart. And that makes us ask this question. What is the equal and opposite reaction? Which actually started happening right from the beginning. I've been doing this presentation a long time. Well, 14 months now. And the equal and opposite reaction to social distancing are the side effects. You've probably felt them in some capacity. You know something feels off. And to put it in perspective, if you've ever watched television at night specifically, you'll see Big Pharma has drug commercials. Many of you have seen these. Pretty happy settings, happy people. And it's a pretty simple message. Just take this pill, and you'll feel better. That's the action. By law, they are required to share the side effects. So at the end, they may say, hey, Travis, just take this little pill and you'll feel better. But you may get dizzy, you may have headaches, diarrhea, depression, and you could die. I don't know about you, but I've watched some of these commercials, and it's almost laughable at the end that there's that many side effects to feel good. I know what I've thought. Just take the illness over the side effects. The side effects sound worse. Here's the problem. We were told by the World Health Organization, by the CDC, and by government officials to socially distance. The orders, the mandates, the executive orders all came out. Stay apart. But they weren't required to tell us the side effects. And there are side effects. And some of the biggest, and maybe you can relate to this, we've had a decrease in accountability, a lack of engagement. It's impacted personal performance. Morale has been impacted. Communication has been impacted. The impact of social distancing has been huge, but nobody was required to tell us the side effects. But we have a cure for it. How incredible is that? No matter how long we stayed apart, no matter what that damage was, we can fix that. Now, Time Magazine actually had a very unique outlook on the pandemic when it first broke out, when it was called the coronavirus. And they said the coronavirus outbreak has become the world's largest work from home experiment. I do not dispute that, but I want to add to it. What I have found in business, coaching many businesses in many industries, is that there's a lot of experiments happening right now. There's a communication experiment. There is a team building experiment. There is a leadership experiment. There's a sales experiment. There's an engagement experiment. There's a vision experiment. There's an accountability experiment. There's a culture experiment. There's, you name it. There's a lot of experiments going on right now. Every business and every business leader has been tested for the last 14 months. But that's not the biggest experiment that's happening right now. And it's going on at this moment, and that's a unification experiment. As we enter this new phase, we have to ask ourselves this question. Do we want to do more than just bring our people back? Do we want to bring them back unified, creating cohesion and unparalleled levels of teamwork? We need to unify. If you're going to give a theme to the rest of this year, 2021, probably into 2022, should be the year of unification. This is when our people need us the most. We need to unify them. And when I ask most leaders, what is your plan to bring people back? They often tell me the vaccine. The vaccine will only fight the virus. It will not fight the effects of social distancing. In fact, there have been studies done on long distance relationships. Most fail, but the ones that remove distancing and just move in together, Ohio State University did a study that showed 82% of those people who are madly in love with each other, want to be together for the rest of their lives, fall apart, and the majority of them within 3 months. Do not wait, because we are going into a new phase. We've all experienced chaos. I am an unfortunate expert in chaos. I served in the military during the Gulf War time period. I've been my wife's caregiver through 4 battles of cancer. She died of cardiac arrest and came back. I led a media company through the Great Recession. I understand chaos. And there's 3 phases. There's the obstacle, which was the pandemic, or it could be combat or war or cancer or cardiac arrest. We have an obstacle and it's hard, but it's more regimented. And then we're going to get to this great new era, which people have called the new norm, which is an oxymoron. So it doesn't exist. So I renamed it the great new era. And we're heading into the great new era. Leaders, we have to get through the great transition. This is when people fall apart. This is when we notice the signs of stress. We associate PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, not combat disorder, deployment disorder, or war disorder, stress disorder. We typically associate that phenomenon with the military. But just think for a second, how many people do you know that have been stressed out in the last 14 months? And we're going to bring them all back together. The end of war signifies when we can start to see signs of PTSD. When you go into remission from cancer, we see signs of PTSD. The vaccine will signal the signs of PTSD. And we're just going to put all these people in a room. This is your chance to shine as leaders during the great transition phase, because the great new era is going to be incredible. Now, here's how we do it. Here's what you need to do. The cure for social distancing is C3, cohesion, connection, and communication. You have to create cohesion among your senior leaders. You have to connect every single person in your organization with the shared language of leadership. And you need to create a communication movement in your organization. Every word, every speech, every gesture, and every action that we take in the workplace has magnetic properties. Every word, every speech, every gesture, every action can either attract people or repel people. In a world of social distancing, everything we communicate needs to bring people together. Now, in the Marine Corps, this presentation would have been called a double time presentation. I think I worked up a sweat, but you deserve it, because we are going in to a phase where we're all at the starting line right now. There is no leader that can write a book on transitioning out of the pandemic. We haven't done it yet. And we have the cure, but we are at that starting line, and we need to get to the finish line, which is the great new era. And we need to retain people when they're at a phase where they may leave. So I want to share this with you. The cure for social distancing is all about unification. Unify people with every action you take, with every word you speak. Think about that magnetic property of attraction and bring your people together. I just want to say thank you so much, AGC, Travis, for having me on, for allowing me to share this brief message with you on something that has impacted us at all levels in business and in our home life too. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing everybody in the Zoom room.